I just like when they get it, when people get it, when people write and they get it, or when someone comes up to me and like, yo, it just felt like you was looking through my window, man. Like you just told my life in that song. You know what I'm saying? Like when someone goes through the same thing you go through and then you say it in the song and they really relate to you, like that's them. You know what I mean?
The mighty Jay-Z, aka Sean Corey Carter, is a colossus in modern urban black music, one of hip-hop's true dissenting voices and a mercurial creative spirit. Always challenging, inventive, freewheeling, proactive and erudite, this one-man bomb factory has established himself among the pantheon of great rappers and carved out an enviable reputation in the annals of black musical history. As a rapper, he stands without equal, and as a forward-thinking visionary, he elicits comparisons with the socially conscious greats. This remarkable artist makes records of ceaseless invention and power, puts them out to the public at an astonishing rate, and grows artistically with each and every new release. Never one to take the obvious, safer route or abandon his ideals, Jay-Z lives and breathes his music and remains committed to the hip-hop cause. He constantly pushes back the barriers, unselfishly champions young upstarts, and keeps tabs on the next new thing. Never outmoded or stuck in the one groove, he feels he is born to create. With the help of an elite squad of collaborators and production henchmen, Jay-Z has effectively taken hip-hop off the dance floor and put it into people's heads without ever losing the funk. He has redefined the relationship of the beat to the rap, the song to the human voice, in an age where machines seem to be taking over. He has established an ideal of black American cool from which no one need feel excluded. His intense creativity tumbles out like it has to, and as if he has no control over it. Jay-Z's ethereal grooves, urgent rapping, cut-and-paste creativity and deft lyricism combine to produce thrilling sounds, which eschew transient trends and illuminate their own territory. The ominous, surging bass lines, general air of brooding menace and soulful conviction place him at the forefront of his genre, in an exalted, rarefied place. His music is a beguiling blend of classic songcraft, eerie studio atmospherics, socio-political angst and concerns which emanate from the groin. The profane and the sacred are expertly straddled by this most intelligent, imaginative and street-smart of hip-hoppers. For all its aggressive reputation, hip-hop actually offers a way through a maze of electrical circuits and human misunderstanding to a sense of community which overrides conventional ethic and cultural divides. And so it is with Jay-Z's records, which posit the great man as a subversive ambassador, a patron of the good fight, a figure for positivity amidst a deluge of nihilism and apoplexy. If his lyrical tirades betray the frustrations of contemporary urban living and the injustices of the black male, then his eloquence makes it clear that understanding on all sides is absolutely necessary. Between two extremes, the testosterone bluster of gangster rap and the wholesome Afrocentricities of the Daisy Age cruise, and in the space generated between them, there lies a third infinitely more valuable position. One which neither panders to white people's prejudices nor black people's worst excesses. One that prizes passion, cool and truth equally, that reflects the fractious realities of contemporary life to anyone who cares to listen, and supplies the Beavis and Butthead characters with the much-needed moral guidance their absent parents are unable to provide. This position is Jay-Z's, a true warrior poet of unusual insight, sensitivity and genuine class. His sumptuous productions carve out a languid space above the maelstrom of city life, and his expertly delivered stories range from bright, hook-laden poppy hits to full-on hardcore street anthems and everything in between. The samples come thick and fast and can derive from such unlikely bedfellows as hard rock, disco, gritty soul and funk. As for his much-trumpeted rapping, there really isn't a finer MC in the business. He grabs the listener's attention immediately and refuses to let go. His diatribes of invective and bravura can raise the hairs on the back of your neck and send you scurrying for your soul at the same time. Both scholar and funketeer, His musical sensibility encompasses the canon of 20th century black music. Never one to rest on his laurels, this massive talent drops musical bombs at an incredibly prolific rate, constantly keeping his fans guessing his next move or new direction. Always outspoken and forthright in his views, he speaks with authority, honesty and conviction. He never relents in his dogged pursuit of the truth, the next beat, the new cutting-edge rhyme. Few rappers can claim the kudos that Jay-Z brings to the table. Lyricist extraordinaire, multi-platinum artist, writer of songs for such luminaries as Dr. Dre and Foxy Brown, film producer, director and actor, Grammy Award winner, label honcho and entrepreneur. In a music world of fakes and chances, his excellence is peerless.
No, man. I mean, that's just the thing that shaped you as a person. You know, I mean, success is one thing, and I'm grateful for it. And you know, I've been blessed with a talent. You know, what I mean, I've been born on that day at that time and that month, that year, and I'm grateful for it. But you can't change who we are.
The Jay-Z story has humble origins. Sean Corey Carter was born on December 4th, 1969 in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in the mean streets of the rough Marcy Projects neighbourhood. His mother, Gloria Carter, brought him up alongside his brother and two sisters. His father left his mother before Sean had reached his teens. Since nobody in New York City, America, or the rest of the world wanted to know about the so-called black ghettos, the unmentionable areas of extreme urban deprivation and poverty such as the Marcy Projects, the hip-hop style and code was allowed to flourish as a genuine street movement whose presence was felt through the prominence of graffiti. As white New Yorkers might never have to visit the black or Hispanic parts of town, in a sense graffiti was a visitation upon them, an infringement, a rally cry. A style of dress grew up, a fractured image of cool combining casual and sportswear. Competition was at the heart of hip-hop. Not only did it help displace violence and the refuge of destructive drugs like heroin, but it also fostered an attitude of creating from limited materials. All of this was embraced by the young Sean Carter. He was astute enough to realise that his future had limited options, and he became immersed in the b-boy street culture. At this stage of its development, hip-hop had no career plan or industry structure, but Sean knew that he could achieve something within it. Life on the projects was stark, difficult, harsh and intimidating, but Sean had an inner resolve which refused to surrender. From an early age, he developed a no-bullshit mentality, an obvious example being the shooting of his brother when he was just 9. He fired a pistol at his shoulder because he had stolen his ring. From that day onwards, he developed a reputation as someone who didn't suffer fools gladly or tolerate the slightest transgression. At the age of 12, his parents divorced, leaving Gloria to run the house and look after the children on her own. Life was extremely awkward, difficult, intense, and at times painful. Theirs was a world as far removed from the American dream as is possible to imagine. The Carter clan seemed to be stuck in a catch-22 situation of spiralling debt, domestic chaos, sibling strife, poor housing, and educational dysfunction. Sean took it badly but formulated a constructive response. Well aware that spending the next few years studying at school was a futile and financially impossible exercise, he became a self-supportive teen, turning to the streets. He became a hustler and also devoted himself to honing his rapping skills. Gradually, he developed a burgeoning reputation for himself in Brooklyn as a fledgling rapper. Word spread amongst the b-boy community that a new kid on the block was emerging. Without a male role model in the house, he nevertheless did all he could to break into the hip-hop industry, doing what needed to be done to make the money he needed to launch his career. His high school friend was the notorious B.I.G., who was also trying to gain a break in the business. Whilst waiting for his break, Sean worked as a cashier at Kentucky Fried Chicken, where he met future star Memphis Bleek. Sean was known as Jazzy in his neighbourhood district because of his admirable jazzy dress sense. Other nicknames included Jigger, Jiggerman, and Jehovah. He knew that he needed a slick new moniker for his rap career, so he shortened Jazzy to Jay-Z, and the rest, as they say, is history.
When I started on my own, I wanted to get a deal with a major label. So I had a demo tape and I shopped it to all the major labels and nobody would sign me. So I could have easily have folded right then, I'm not good enough or been down on myself. But I was like, nah, they just don't get it. So I started printing up my own records, put them in the trunk of our car, start selling them out the trunk of our car. I mean, it was real grassroots, spending 200, making 150 back. And I mean, for real, really from there, and then look at it now,
Jay-Z first came to prominence in the hip-hop world with a couple of guest vocal spots on tracks by his friends. In 1990, he unleashed his inimitable tones upon the public for the first time on Jazz's hit single, The Originators. This memorable tune became a favourite with many hip-hop fans and sent out a warning to all the rapping bigwigs counting their riches in their mansions. Here was a brand new voice urging to be heard, and there was nothing or nobody going to stop him. In 1993, he cropped up on the original Flavour hit Can I Get Open, another seminal tune. By this time, there was a word-of-mouth buzz surrounding this gifted rhyme master's prowess on the mic. His delivery was instantaneous, compelling, indignant, bellicose and true. Commentators bent over backwards to praise this irrepressible new force in music. Whilst making his presence felt via these two powerful cameos, Jay-Z touted his wares to a number of hip-hop labels. He came armed with a wealth of demos, but couldn't commit to a deal because these companies were brazen mercenaries, liable to exploit his talent for big profit and leave him with next to nothing. He grew increasingly frustrated, but knew he had to persist. Jay-Z went through the ringer with many an A&R representative before coming to realise that the deal he was looking for would not be forthcoming. He wanted a deal which would enable him to express himself freely, without intervention or external pressures. Record labels also became frustrated at his refusal to tell them his real age. However, in 1995, Jay-Z released the red-hot single In My Lifetime on Payday Records, a blistering, infectious dose of heavy-duty funk. This first release under his own name pricked the ears of many a record company executive, music critic and fellow rapper. There was no solo album to accompany it, but it hit a raw nerve in the industry and became an underground success. Then, in 1996, came the sledgehammer blow, signifying that Jay-Z meant serious business. In a move of unprecedented ambition and audacity, the former street hustler followed his instincts and set up his own label. At a time when this practice simply wasn't done on such a large scale, he created Rockefeller Records with his pals, the entrepreneur Damon Dash and Kareem Biggs Burke. He was always headstrong, self-sufficient and uncompromising, but this move signalled serious intent. Here was a cheeky young upstart, a relative novice laying his cards on the table and sending out shockwaves to the music industry. It was a potentially risky strategy to cut out the middleman and make money for himself, but there was no stopping him. Naturally, he needed a good quality distributor, so a deal with Priority was settled. Jay-Z had a whole album worth of original material to unload and was in no mood to procrastinate. First on the block came the enormously successful Dead Presidents Ain't No Nigger single, which featured future rap star Foxy Brown. Ain't No Nigger took on a cult status all of its own and established Brown and Jay-Z as leading lights of a new hip-hop generation. The single climbed to number 50 in the singles charts and registered gold sales. Both cuts are invigorating, densely woven tracks which boast insistent hooks and irresistible melodies. Nearly 30 years after James Brown's Funky President and The Last Poets, Wake Up Niggers here are potent, conscious, militant urban songs of consummate subtlety, conviction and raw soul. This was followed by the release of Jay-Z's debut album entitled Reasonable Doubt. Featuring cameos by Mary J. Blige and Notorious B.I.G., the album reached number 23 in the charts in July 1996 and heralded the emergence of a major vital new talent. It attracted fans with its imperious blend of hard-hitting street lyrics and ingenious rhymes, epitomised by the portentous collaboration with Notorious B.I.G. on the stunning Brooklyn's Finest. For a debut album, the quality was impeccable. Jay-Z's confessional stripped-to-the-bone lyrics and stentorian rapping style, perfectly complemented by an innovative assemblage of samples and cut-ups. Fluid rapping and masterful unconventional production sculptures conspired to produce enigmatic, visionary, disarming hip-hop of the highest order. Shuffling beats, spiralling string and piano figures, impassioned declarations and some of the most claustrophobic atmospherics ever heard on vinyl sent critics and pundits heads spinning. Reasonable Doubt enjoyed modest commercial success, attaining gold status and spawning a further top 40 smash single in Can't Knock the Hustle, featuring sultry queen of R&B Mary J. Blige. This remarkable single is a peerless collision of R&B and hip-hop stylings, with Blige belting out a magnificent cameo as the spirit of motherhood. It is a sure measure of its greatness that when played to both audiences, its street sentiment brings lumps to the throat rather than snorts of derision. The collaboration cemented Jay-Z's standing amongst the R&B set and helped ingratiate himself with a wider audience. Reasonable Doubt became a firm favourite amongst critics and those in the know, but bigger was to come. Seasoned rap listeners and writers in the press championed the disc and the mercurial talents of Jay-Z, but he hadn't yet gone supernova.
We had a single out called Dead Presidents, and these guys from Priority Records, they came over to meet with us, and they gave a distribution deal, and I released my first album, Reasonable Doubt, off of there, which went gold. And then after that, we left Priority and went over to Def Jam, and we got a co-venture, which is a 50-50 deal with them for Rockefeller Records, and from there, that was it.
With Jay-Z instantly elevated into the upper echelons of the rap hierarchy, the pressure was on him to deliver a worthy follow-up. The unanimous praise granted to Reasonable Doubt had upped the stakes considerably and placed a good deal more strain on the creative process. The difficult second album syndrome was lying in wait, ready to gobble him up at the first murmur of cracking under the strain. Astonishingly, however, Jay-Z brushed these considerations aside and returned in November 1997 with another haunting, beguiling, impressive collection of new material. Unleashed on the 4th of November, In My Lifetime Volume 1 was a significant improvement on the debut disc and sent critics into a state of bewildered disbelief. It was a truly gargantuan achievement, a stunning song suite which paid dues to the hip-hop tradition, but also reinvented the language and idiom. Released in the aftermath of his school friend Notorious B.I.G.'s murder, In My Lifetime Volume 1 debuted at number 2 in the US Billboard 200 Albums charts in November. Armed with a new distribution deal with Def Jam Records, Jay-Z stitched together an intensely personal, chilling record, bursting with energy, musical sophistication, lyrical genius and inspired left turns. This is typified by the wonderful You Must Love Me, the storming The City Is Mine with Blackstreet, and the deliciously sexy Sunshine with Foxy Brown. The album keeps up the momentum throughout, never dipping in quality and always keeping the listener on their toes. The lack of a smash hit single didn't hurt sales of In My Lifetime Volume 1, which clocked up platinum status and drew numerous plaudits from the music press and hip-hop community. Reasonable Doubt was art for art's sake, the street tales of a man unaffected by the commercial business of hip-hop and out to prove he was the number one MC. In My Lifetime Volume 1, however, was the dizzy noise of a self-aware, sleek master MC, revelling in his newfound status as hip-hop's new thing, knocking out a wide variety of gunslinging anthems for the people, all laced with wit, vitriol, despair, optimism and adventure. Through an inspired, fluent mix of rapturous interpolations, coruscating beats, metaphysical speculations, and old-fashioned bump and grind, Jay-Z grabs hip-hop by the throat and sends it whirling into another dimension. What transpires is a potent reassertion of the original hip-hop ideal, a wealth of individual voices expressing themselves with devastating artistry through a common cultural heritage. These urban tableaux are played out to a soundscape of shimmering intensity, mellifluous beauty, and fierce rhetoric. Sunshine is a quite stunning affair, finding a magnificent synthesis between Jay-Z's rampant pedagoguery and Foxy Brown's sensual honeyed drawl. Sometimes pairing a rapper with an R&B diva smacks of desperation or creative redundancy, with the end result more often than not sounding limp, lame, and contrived. It can do neither party much good, but here the coupling is inspired. The clipped beats and ethereal production fit Jay-Z's thundering tones, and Brown's trademark swoons like a hand fits a glove. On You Must Love Me, Jay-Z pulls off the trick of sounding simultaneously wounded and arrogant, whilst his collaboration with rising R&B group Blackstreet on The City Is Mine is perfectly pitched between high drama, scorched intensity, and sing-along anthem. This irresistible track swaggers like the best primetime 70s funk soul and vintage East Coast hip-hop rolled into one delirious swirl. The unstoppable Where I'm From is another highlight of the disc, expertly, seamlessly crafting inflammatory, chest-beating diatribes onto some of the most intensely funky, instantly accessible, loose-limbed music known to man. Hell-bent on mangling together funk, soul, rock and hip-hop roots with aplomb, it exploits all the opportunities for idiosyncratic self-expression that rap's unique mix of bluster and etiquette can supply. It still somehow sounds both free-form and organic at the same time. Jay-Z was now in demand as a guest vocalist on other artists' work, and even held a spot on Puff Daddy and the Family's No Way Out tour of 1997. However, he dropped out early on due to frustrations over the poor sound quality of the shows.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, I didn't have any plans. Like, it just was just, I never seen it going this far. You know what I mean? I always was into music. I didn't know what I was gonna do or what role I was gonna play.
Pumped up on energy, grit, determination and self-belief, Jay-Z continued to push back the barriers and join the likes of Ice Cube and Master P as rappers in the world of film. In 1998, he released The Streets Is Watching film, which he co-wrote, produced, co-directed and starred in, together with the accompanying soundtrack. The semi-autobiographical short, released as a home video, was billed as a lesson in how to make it in the hip-hop business. As well as acting in this hour-long debut video, he helped write the dialogue, which gave him the opportunity to branch out and create stories without rhymes. This was a creative challenge for Jay-Z, who had never attempted to write prose or flat dialogue before. He discovered that not having to write rhymes actually freed his imagination, and he was able to express things in ways that he hadn't previously. Fortunately, as much of the material was based on his life, he found it easy to tap into his personal experience and put it on the page. Moreover, many of the ideas and plot lines were derived naturally from the accompanying songs. Directed by Jay-Z and Abdul Malik Abbott, and scripted by them alongside Chaka Pilgrim and Damon Dash, the compelling film tells the story of Jay-Z's struggles during his early days in hip-hop and the founding of Rockefeller Records. The storyline was scored with music by Jay-Z protégés such as Memphis Bleek and Diamonds in the Rough, while being intertwined with videos for various Jay-Z tracks including You Must Love Me, Imaginary Players and Friend or Foe. Production on the film began soon after Jay-Z's exit from the No Way Out tour and was a painful, intense, exhausting process. It was enough that he had to juggle his record label duties with film production, but then there was the actual shooting, which was laborious and intensive. Surrounded by a team of consummate professionals, he completed the film in a frenetic 2 weeks. Scenes had to be reshot and the working days merged into one. Jay-Z was mentally and physically tired throughout the filming and felt that he'd overloaded himself with too much work. In the end, all the perseverance and hard work paid off, and by the time of post-production and the final edit, Jay-Z felt justifiably proud. Conceived loosely as a ghetto musical, an updated version of Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim's classic West Side Story, Streets is Watching was released as a video and soundtrack on the 12th of May 1998. Both releases received the critical thumbs up, with some commentators keen to emphasise the link between the gang psychology depicted in the film and that in the Broadway musical. The film's in-your-face imagery and gritty realism proved unpalatable for some, but highlighted Jay-Z's undoubted credibility as a former street hustler in the projects. Jay-Z had conceived of the project as a love letter to his fans, to show them that sometimes fiction or art based on reality is the greatest fantasy. He wanted them to understand the Rockefeller story as told by the man best equipped to do it. It also helped Jay-Z come to terms with his background and early struggles, as if to turn the final page on that chapter of his life. Now he had closure, and it was time to move on. The soundtrack for the video read as a sampler of Rockefeller's talent. Featuring rappers such as Memphis Bleek and Diamonds in the Rough, alongside R&B acts like Christian and Rel, the album housed the songs used as a score to the film. The opening single from the album was Love for Free by the 19-year-old R&B crooner Rel. Originally written by Rel as a demo when negotiating his record deal with Rockefeller, the song pleads with a woman to turn her attention and energies away from another man who doesn't want her and towards the narrator. The song isn't based on any real-life experience and wasn't inspired by any single person. The version on the soundtrack features a guest appearance by Jay-Z, who laid down his part in around 15 minutes flat, long after Rel's vocal was completed. Love for Free was followed by the release of Jay-Z's hit single It's Alright, a stunning choice from the album. The soundtrack album was a resounding success, going gold and enhancing Jay-Z's reputation as an artist of significance, not just a deft rapper with an excellent production team. Each cut slotted seamlessly into the narrative, illuminating the action without clumsily hitting the viewer and listener over the head. The supporting cast all excelled, and Jay-Z's choice of material was immaculate. The barnstorming hip-hop tracks nestle comfortably alongside the more sultry, laid-back R&B numbers without losing their impetus. Now Jay-Z was coming into his own, and critics compared his rapping and charisma to that of Tupac, LL Cool J and Notorious B.I.G. This renegade lyrical master and musical maestro was taking it to the next level and threatening to take over the world of hip-hop. There seemed no stopping Jay-Z, and by the end of the year, he had issued yet another new piece of work, namely the third album proper, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. Unveiled for an adoring public on the 29th of September 1998, this immensely satisfying long player recruited hotshot producers of the moment Timbaland and Swiss Beats, and assembled DMX, Too Short, Jermaine Dupri, Foxy Brown and The Lox as guests. Around this time, Jay-Z had begun to feel the strain of his prolific workload and had even considered retirement from the performance side of the industry. However, such career-ending thoughts were quickly brushed aside when recording sessions for the album began. He hit a rich vein of form in the studio and cut the basic tracks in less than 1 month. Any prospect of sitting behind a desk and cutting deals was banished. With the new record, Jay-Z aimed to make the notoriously difficult crossover to a wider audience without diluting or compromising the content of his message. So, alongside a slew of hard-hitting anthems, came a handful of ready-made, radio-friendly commercial singles. These included Money Ain't a Thang, Hard Knock Life, Ghetto Anthem, Cash Money Hoes, and Can I Get Her? The huge hit, Hard Knock Life, Ghetto Anthem, is built around one of the most peculiar offbeat samples ever used in the history of hip-hop, a line from Charles Strauss and Martin Charnin's Broadway musical Annie. It became a massive international smash, reaching number 2 in the British singles charts in December 1998 and number 15 in the US in March 1999. In the promo video for the single, the young girl sitting beside Jay-Z is Peter Guns' daughter. Money Ain't a Thang is a ridiculously catchy, smouldering piece of music with an infectious hook and pulsating breaks, whilst Cash Money Hoes is a startling spiralling twist through the traditional preoccupations of your typical ghetto gangster. Can I Get a has pop hit scrawled all over it, marrying a chunky bass-heavy groove to an instantly memorable tune and some of Jay-Z's most beguiling freestyling. Its video clip features a special guest appearance by Jermaine Dupri. The stellar cast were imposed with a succession of invigorating musical backdrops by Ski, Timbaland and Swiss Beats among others. The result is a free-flowing, commercially slanted collection of insistent hooks, dexterous wordplay, off-kilter samples, swaggering self-aggrandizement and scatological comedy. Each cut fizzes with vim, vigour, sly humour, a languid sexiness and an unmistakable pop sensibility. With Volume 2 Hard Knock Life, Jay-Z had easily straddled critical acclaim and commercial acceptance, enjoying widespread international mainstream success. It became his breakthrough album, shifting an incredible 354,000 copies in its first week of release, according to SoundScan, the record sales statisticians. It sold a further 208,000 units in its second week at the top, earning a gold record from the Recording Industry Association of America. It stayed at number 1 for 5 weeks, clocking up sales of 1.1 million in that period, and fending off the challenges of Busy Bone, Phil Collins, John Mellencamp, Kurupt, R.E.M. and Drew Hill, before being deposed by Alanis Morissette's new album release. At one point, such was his dominance that it looked likely he would break MC Hammer's record of 21 weeks at number 1. The album continued to sell several 100,000 more and achieved platinum status. Jay-Z had now transcended the hip-hop tag and was recognised everywhere as a pop star of magnitude. Jay-Z's commercial success was further enhanced by his headlining the massive coast-to-coast Hard Knock Life tour with other hip-hop stars such as DMX.
When DMX, let me just say, when he first came to the game, he went totally against what Puff was doing. He, was no glam or nothing, it was just all grunge. You know what I'm saying? And if he wouldn't have did that, there wouldn't be no DMX. Yeah.
Jay-Z was on a creative roll, and his large-scale arena tour had elevated his popularity to even more astonishing heights. He had become arguably the most successful and renowned East Coast rapper, yet he was in no mood for complacency. His already bulging workload increased in 1999, with a series of guest spots on other artists' records, the signing of several new acts to Rockefeller, and working on another new album. There seemed hardly enough time for the new overlord of hip-hop to relax and reflect on it all. His blockbuster hip-hop tour with DMX, Method Man and DJ Clue continued through early 1999 and into May, taking in the likes of Detroit, Boston, Denver, Atlanta and Chicago. The tour was a massive success and was seen as a watershed event for hip-hop. Meanwhile, on January the 29th, 1999, Jay-Z appeared alongside Method Man and Foxy Brown at a pre-Super Bowl concert at the Miami Arena. The sellout gig, which took place 2 days before the Super Bowl at Miami's Pro Player Stadium, was organised by the National Football League and the Miami radio station WEDR 99.1 FM. The event, which was originally to include Montel Jordan on its bill, was hosted by hip-hop don LL Cool J and R&B vocalist Brandy. Throughout 1999, Jay-Z bolstered his roster of burgeoning protégés on his Rockefeller imprint. He launched the careers of DJ Clue, Beanie Siegel and Memphis Bleek. DJ Clue, the jock on the 49-date Jay-Z tour, was renowned in the New York underground scene for his mixtapes and had helped gain exposure for Jay-Z on his way to the top. Jay-Z cut a smash hit single with Mariah Carey entitled Heartbreaker, which smashed Billboard Hot 100 records for shifting 271,000 units in October 1999. Although sneered at by some keep-it-real merchants in the hip-hop community, the track took on a life of its own and became a huge crossover success. As the year drew to a close, Jay-Z delivered a stunning knockout blow in the form of his fourth full-length album. Released on the 28th of September 1999, Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter, was an unqualified resounding triumph, featuring tight quality control, peerless production, naggingly memorable songs, and the funkiest beats and rhymes on the block. Conceived as a reaction to the commercial crossover of the previous album, this record pushed the music into different, more experimental areas. It reflected the massive self-confidence of an artist unafraid to take risks and put a more left-field spin on his formula. Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter, confirmed Jay-Z's preeminence as one of hip-hop's most popular artists when it topped the album charts in January 2000. Critics and aficionados welcomed its return to the wild side, while some recent converts were left scratching their heads at this departure. There was nothing on here to grab the casual radio listener's ear. Instead, Jay-Z served up an intoxicating, at times unsettling maelstrom of slamming funk, witty asides, renegade assaults and string-soaked vitriol. Just when one expected the sugar sweetener of an R&B diva cooing an intervention amidst the macho posturing and thinly veiled violence, the music took another turn to the left and plotted a stealthier course of action. Come and Get Me is one of the LP's highlights, an absorbing, slinky slab of funk, topped by an ironic drawl of a delivery. In the song, Jay-Z recounts driving away from the projects and being warned by residents about the criminality and violence. He responds by reminding them that he grew up in those areas and wasn't always a world-famous rap star. Come and Get Me is Jay-Z's challenge to the project's kids and reflects his increasing frustration with the changing attitudes and expectations of those around him. His message is that he hasn't changed into a two-headed monster just because he is rich and successful. Although the album was only a relatively modest success commercially, it received acres of positive press and turned up on most of the end-of-the-year critics' polls. Jay-Z had made it crystal clear that innovation and integrity were his guiding principles, not short-term profit and transient mainstream popularity.
Rap is more of a business. Hip-hop is more of an artistic expression. I think hip-hop is the root of rap, is the foundation of rap. Sometimes they cross.
Unleashed on the 31st of October 2000, the dynasty, Rock La Familia, was another artistic and commercial triumph, topping the album charts and inviting a flood of superlatives from the music press. Aided by the phenomenal success of its Neptunes-produced lead single, I Just Wanna Love You, the record encompassed a variety of hip-hop styles and swaggered with an almost arrogant disregard for current trends and fads. Fellow Rockefeller rappers Amil, Memphis Bleek and Beanie Siegel contributed star turns on an album which was conceived as a supergroup collaboration under a different name. There was a lashing of sex, a dollop of civil unrest, and lavish helpings of gritty urban realism. Tracks like You, Me, Him and Her and Change the Game resound with verve, raw emotion, immediacy and tension. Change the Game is Jay-Z's wake-up call to the hip-hop nation and the record industry set to a beat that is funkier than a Clyde Stubblefield break and twice as dirty. More blunted beauty arrives in the form of the Amil collaboration You, Me, Him and Her. Conceived as a companion piece to those classic 60s and 70s deep soul melodramas of infidelity and confusion like Woman to Woman, She'll Never Be Your Wife and Loser Again, this deeply moving piece boasts a sassy, undiluted juice of a beat and some extraordinary interplay between Jay-Z and Amil. Parkin' Lot Pimpin' is a red-hot cut, showcasing the darker side of urban life in all its degradation. In fact, it was originally intended to be the lead single, and director David Myers had even flown in 1 million low-riders from all over the world for a video shoot. However, at the last minute, Jay-Z changed his mind and plumped for I Just Wanna Love You. The promo video is set in his house, where his attempts to seduce a woman are constantly interrupted by other people. Even when he slides into his low rider with his companion, someone appears from nowhere on the back seat. The video depicts Jay-Z's impatience with his loss of privacy, or what he calls art imitating life, imitating art, imitating life. Once again, Jay-Z had come up with the goods and surpassed even his previous high standards. The record was at times difficult, awkward and uncompromising in its breadth of vision and diversity of content, but benefits from repeated listening. There was little on the album which could be disregarded as daytime radio fodder, and neither were there any fillers. On September the 11th, 2001, the day on which America's Twin Towers dropped in an act of mendacious terrorism, Jay-Z released his 6th album entitled Blueprint. The songs were recorded in a period when he hit a red-hot streak of inspiration. 9 cuts were conceived in a 2-day stretch. Ideas came flowing out of nowhere, and Jay-Z struggled feverishly to nail them all down. Another classic, Blueprint, was the sound of a man on top of his game, relaxing, going with the flow and experimenting with whatever came to hand. He had nothing to prove to anyone. The album blended his trademark conversation chill flows with angular observations and razor-sharp production wizardry. Samples of hard rock, disco, gritty soul and funk, the sounds of his youth, were fed into the mix and pumped out again in Jay-Z's inimitable style. For those who prefer their hip-hop with less of a sheen and more mean, Jay-Z obliges, coming up trumps with instant masterworks like Takeover and You Don't Know. On the latter, he reminds the listener in no uncertain terms that he has a street-dealing history which has stood him in good stead for his business affairs. Yet it's the melancholy reflective cuts like the autobiographical title track and the poignant song cry that brings gravitas and depth to the album. Song Cry is majestic, unquestionably one of the most moving pieces of work of his career. Written as a searingly honest, vulnerable letter from a hustler to his long-suffering, ever-faithful girlfriend, it induces a lump in the throat. Its sentiment, that of a bad guy who has taken his girl for granted and paid the price, is universal. You don't just pick up and leave me sick like that. You don't throw away what we had just like that. Regarded as one of the year's most essential releases, Blueprint achieved a striking cohesion of spirit and mood, unfolding and tumbling organically, allowing each and every stylistic nuance its proper platform. The narrative diversity that flows between party anthems, street bragging and personal laments sit comfortably alongside each other here, with none rudely stepping over the other. Neck-snapping beats, sumptuous production by Just Blaze and Kanye West, and Jay-Z's commanding raps achieved a focused harmony. The record ignores the usual parade of guest turns, save for Eminem's performance on Renegade, and constructs a dazzling canvas of warm soulfulness, replete with lush backing vocals and melodic chord progressions. Seemingly disposable fare like Girls, Girls, Girls might seem meat-headed and embarrassing in the hands of another less gifted artist, but here the different styles conspire to create a rarefied unity. The Blueprint album sold a staggering 465,000 copies over the course of a week, dominated by national grief, fear, anger, navel-gazing and growls of war. It quickly assumed the status of modern classic. Meanwhile, Jay-Z was doing battle with one of his adversaries, Nas. The genesis of their disquiet had become clouded in rumour and counter-rumour, urban lore and rapper ego, accusations of envy and jealousy, mutual perceptions of fake thug posturing and insecurity. Over the summer, at radio station WQHT Hot 97's annual Summer Jam concert, Jay-Z had taunted Nas with accusations of him running scared from the great Jigga. Little surprise then that Nas came back at him with taunts of phoniness to Jay-Z in his song Stillmatic. This naturally left him open to further rants from Jay-Z, as witnessed on the Blueprint cut Takeover. The song, which utilises a sinister adaptation of The Doors' 5 to 1, addresses Nas with the boil-lancing words, "went from top 10 to not mentioned at all." Hot 97 set up a Battle of the Beats showdown between Nas and Jay-Z in July. In one corner sat Jay, boasting of an affair with the mother of Nas's child and threatening to come to Queens, New York, to hand out a dose of Jay-Z's ultraviolence. In the other sat Nas, squabbling with Jay-Z and throwing innuendo about the stabbing of Lance Rivera into the equation. Listeners were invited to call up all facts in their choice for the most scathing retort, and Nas won by a narrow 52 to 48%. In December 2001, Jay-Z marked the opening night of his Blueprint Lunge tour at Manhattan's Hammerstein Ballroom with the declamation, "I dropped the same day as the Twin Towers." Clad in a dark button-down shirt decorated with sergeant's stripes on one sleeve and an American flag patch on the other, he treated the audience to a veritable feast from all of his albums, in tandem with Beanie Sigel, Memphis Bleek and Damon Dash. Highlights included an amazing rendition of Bobby Bland's Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City, an awe-inspiring run-through of Nigga What Nigga Who, and a snippet of his contribution to R. Kelly's Fiesta at the end. On the 18th of December, MTV issued the recording of his unplugged session with The Roots from earlier in the year on Rockefeller Records. Containing a solid representation of all his albums to date, it was released to waves of critical acclaim and soon became a smash hit.
Yeah, it's not like that. Like, it's not like a personal thing, where it's be taking this serious and have a big attitude or like that. Just that you think you're better than me. I don't believe you are. You know what I'm saying? We can prove it. You make your records, I'll make my records. Let the people judge who's better. And then after that is nothing.
As 2002 folded, disaster hit Jay-Z. He was sentenced to 3 years probation for stabbing the record producer Lance Rivera at a New York nightclub some 3 years previously. However, as 2002 commenced, Jay-Z took it in his stride and came out gunning for even more success. In March, he took to the stage with a big-name nu metal lineup, comprising of Korn's Fieldy, Limp Bizkit's John Otto and Static X's Wayne Static at the ESPN Action Sports and Music Awards ceremony held at the Universal Amphitheatre in LA. The group performed under the moniker of the All-Star Band. Then in April he performed a blistering set with Beanie Sigel, Memphis Bleek, Damon Dash, Freeway and Cam'ron at the Urban Aid 2 benefit at the Beacon Theatre in New York. Other luminaries included P. Diddy, The Roots, Ja Rule, Ashanti, Alicia Keys, Fat Joe and Music. He followed this the following month by attending an album launch party for Music's new LP at B.B. King's in New York in May. Also in May, Rockefeller launched Cameron's debut album Come Home With Me. Jay-Z made an 11th hour cameo appearance on the album, thus deflecting any rumours that they didn't see eye to eye. Cameron, who signed a 7-figure deal with Jay-Z's imprint, compared his duet with the great man. Welcome to New York City, to the vile Bin Laden. This is Bin Laden, Taliban action right here, he declared. At the end of May, Jay-Z announced plans to hit the road in August, with his Rockefeller family and a host of guests from both the hip-hop and rock worlds, including Mos Def, De La Soul and Hoobastank. On the 30th, he joined Ja Rule, Fat Joe, Mos Def, Ashanti, Dead Prez and the Wu-Tang Clan in protest against New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg's proposed $1 billion cut in education. Jay-Z and co joined Minister Benjamin Mohammed, Russell Simmons, Al Sharpton and Sex and the City star Cynthia Nixon at City Hall on June the 4th in an event dubbed Mobilization for Education. Jay-Z recorded a public service announcement to be aired on local hip-hop stations and voiced his objections to the cuts. Jay-Z took a breather from his punishing schedule, retreating to the south of France, but returned in time to begin work on his next opus to be entitled The Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse. Upon returning to New York, he commandeered Hot 97 for several hours over a 2-day period to mouth off about his enemies and naysayers. He guested on Angie Martinez's afternoon show, speaking out on the rumours surrounding friction within the Rockefeller stable and his publicised falling out with former mentor Jazz O. But most sensationally of all, he resumed the ongoing fracas with his nemesis Nas. Reiterating a challenge he'd laid down in a recent edition of The Source magazine, he suggested that the two rivals have a pay-per-view rhyme battle, with all event proceeds going to charity. Boxing promoter Don King faxed in a proposal to organise the Battle of the Rhymes, but Nas refused to accept or even acknowledge Jay-Z's challenge. Meanwhile, on the 20th of August, the Sprite Liquid Mix Tour kicked into gear in New York, with Jay-Z headlining an impossibly eclectic bill encompassing Hoobastank, Mos Def, De La Soul, Nappy Roots, Nerd, Borealis, Non-Point, Black Alicious and Talib Kweli. Throughout the tour, Jay-Z showcased material from his forthcoming The Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse, all of which went down a storm. Whilst on tour, he revealed that he'd originally intended to form part of the now defunct Triple Threat tour with Ja Rule and P. Diddy, but pulled out because the time wasn't right. He emphasised, however, that he was still on good terms with the two rappers. On September the 6th, Rockefeller's film division released Paid in Full, starring Cameron and Wood Harris. After the disappointing state property and the delay of the film's release due to rampant bootlegging, hopes were riding high on this loose biopic of Harlem drugs lords Rich Porter, Alpo and AZ. The film got a warm reception from audiences and critics. In the meantime, Rockefeller Films wrapped production on its first comedy, Paper Soldiers, and announced a plan to make a comedy satirising the hip-hop industry, called Death of a Dynasty. Jay-Z's The Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse was released on November the 5th, 2002.
Yo, I'm from Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, New York. You know what I'm saying? And I'm over here in London now. And it was then that I realized, I was like, you know, we driving around and the other side of the street in Mercedes-Benz cabs, and it was like Piccadilly Circus, you know. I'm like, yo, this could really happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just seen how far hip hop could take you from your neighborhood. I mean, this is the furthest from my neighborhood you can get.
Few artists, urban or otherwise, could claim to be as intensely creative as Jay-Z has been over the past 6 years, and his struggles as a poor kid living in the projects have been well documented, both in his work and in interviews. But who is the real Sean Carter, and what drives him to do his thing? Well, for a start, his prolific work rate wasn't a conscious plan from the beginning. His initial goal was just to finish one album and see what came of it. But the first album settled him into a groove which shows no sign of abating. He admits that the more music he makes, the more he wants to improve the quality. His schedule of dropping an album every 12 months came about by accident, but he now feels that this work rate keeps him focused and centred on his music. He has so many different ideas that he nails them down on record before he can forget them or become distracted. His aim is to keep challenging himself musically with each new release, for creative status is the enemy. He was on the verge of burnout at one stage and even entertained thoughts of quitting recording, but has had to learn to keep all his different business and musical interests separate. As a person, he believes that each individual has a duty to learn from every experience in their lives. He thinks that everything that happens to us shapes us and our characters, whether for the better or worse. Every struggle, challenge and obstacle is placed in front of us to see how much stronger a person we can become. He admits that he wouldn't be where he is now without the trials and tribulations of his childhood and teenage years. He feels sad that some people have changed their attitudes and behaviour when around him since he has hit the big time. They either expect him to have changed or got too big for his boots and are unsure what to expect from him. Jay-Z feels that they can't cope with him remaining the low-key, laid-back, chilled person he always was. He has compared the whole touring thing to the film Groundhog Day, as he repeats the same routine over and over every day. But all this is easily forgotten as soon as he strides on stage in the evening and delivers that first knockout line. He sees himself as a serious artist who just wants to make music. All the extraneous promotion stuff is something he dislikes. Away from the hip-hop arena, he enjoys a champagne lifestyle, riding in chauffeured cars and flying in private planes and helicopters. One weekend, he left the recording studio for the boxing gym, then zipped to the US Open final, saw the Felix Trinidad fight, and then met executives about his work on the director's cut of the film Scarface. He counts Michael Jackson, Carmen Cass, and Michael Jordan amongst his best celebrity friends, and was good friends with Aaliyah, Damon Dash's girlfriend, before her tragic death. As for the snide comments about his immense wealth, Mariah Carey collaboration, big houses and Bentley car, he argues that underneath all this he remains essentially the same person. No matter where you are, there you are. This is his message. You put him in a big car, in a room with Mariah Carey, and he is still Sean Carter. The skeptics, though, have been few and far between. Jay-Z hasn't received the kind of backlash aimed at Puffy, whose well-documented excesses have alienated fans and critics alike. He claims this is because his art is true both to life and to himself. He says that people recognise he is engaged in a genuine struggle, not just using hip-hop as a launchpad for celebrity or women. Jay's recording process is miraculous, to say the least. He picks a track, turns it up loud in the studio, then sits off to the side, mumbling along to himself. In the space of a few minutes, he's got hooks and rhymes with astounding economy and filled with his trademark scatological double entendres. These are instantly memorised and processed into his brain without the aid of pen and paper. At times, there are 4 or 5 songs floating around in his head. Jay explains this method is a gift from God, which is why he calls himself the God MC and Jay-Hova.
I think, certain people are doing really well. Ja Rule is doing he's doing his thing right now. Yeah, he's making a lot of good songs right now. But for the majority of rap music, it's just all the same. I think a lot of people need to just take some chances and explore with their music. You know what I'm saying? That's the only way we're gonna grow.
The Jay-Z story is almost a fairy tale, a classic urban legend, a traditional rags to riches journey. It is very difficult to imagine a more perfect success story than his remarkable ascendance to the top of the rap game. His unflagging drive, sense of self-worth, ambition and acumen have combined to elevate him to the astonishing heights of label supremo, pop star and peerless MC. He has become arguably the most successful and most recognised East Coast rapper, and his dynasty of protégés looks set to uphold the tradition he has established. He is centred, balanced, well-respected and always searching for the next beat, the next big thing. He refuses to sit still and become complacent. His incredible rate of releasing albums is frankly an astonishing feat. His income and riches might have escalated beyond all comprehension, but he remains steadfastly committed to his trade, his love and passion. Hip-hop culture rescued him from a life of futility, and he feels indebted to it, so his label is a way of putting something back in. He recognises the frustrations of young kids living in areas of urban deprivation, and is only too happy to offer them a chance to transcend their economic environment. Musically, Jay-Z keeps on reinventing himself and his sound. Each album is a departure from the last one. No 2 records sound the same. Whereas he could easily have recycled the familiar, the popular, the accessible, and watched the money pour in, he has constantly experimented with and updated his music. He is open to new influences and likes to surround himself with an evolving crew of musicians, DJs and producers so that he never goes stale or loses his impetus. His creative edge has never dwindled. He is always ahead of the game, pushing hip-hop in radical, interesting and unforeseen directions. His record sales have fluctuated from album to album, but the one constant is his ability to surprise his listeners. Sticking to a formula is enough for other rappers, but this genius is devoted to his craft. He remains an individualist in a culture which is afraid of persistent change and reinvention. Like David Bowie in 70s rock music, he is a chameleon, never sticking to the one sound and always keeping his ears open for inspiration. Other hip-hop acts stumble upon a groove that suits them and seem content to repeat their popular hits over and over again in slightly different guises. But Jay-Z is a master of second-guessing his audience. Infinitely complex, subtle, eclectic and infused with delicate, faultless nuances of performance that only true artists can hope to achieve, his work rings true precisely because it is steeped in hard-won experience. Jay-Z's clarity, intelligence and poetry of the soul makes him a treasure, a genuine soul brother and an artist of the highest calibre.
Thank you for buying Maximum Jay-Z. We hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for further titles on Chrome Dreams coming up soon. If you did enjoy it or have any comments or suggestions, write to us at Chrome Dreams, PO Box 230, New Malden, Surrey, UK, KT36YY, or email on mail@chromedreams.co.uk. Details of our full catalogue are listed on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and goodbye for now.